And the other one was a Bugatti Chiron Sport out in Miami.
For 115 years, Bugatti has been untouchable. Millions of dollars, elite French engineering, and a CEO who thought they had the final word. When Mat Armstrong bought a wrecked Chiron Sport, one of only 60 in existence, Bugatti didn't just walk away. They officially blacklisted the car, locked the VIN, and declared it a carbon fiber corpse. The factory's message was clear: if we can't fix it, no one can. But Mat Armstrong refused to take no for an answer. From a garage in Leicester, while the experts boasted about their unfixable masterpiece, Mat was doing the unthinkable, splitting a $4 million hypercar in half with mere workshop tools and pure grit, no specialist training, no factory support. Today, that unrepairable Bugatti is screaming back to life, and everyone is forced to ask, if a guy from Leicester can beat the factory at their own game, what exactly are we paying millions for? Stay with us, things just spiraled out of control. You're about to see how one man with a camera and a wrench wiped the floor with the most exclusive car brand in history. From nobody's garage to everybody's screen.
What would happen if you turned the traction control off on an 820 horsepower
Crash already.
but it can fix the wheels, or is it not magnesium?
Mat Armstrong didn't just build a YouTube channel, he built a reputation. There is a difference. You see, a YouTube channel is just a page, numbers, thumbnails, and an upload schedule. Anyone can build one of those. Millions of people have. Most of them disappear within 2 years without leaving a mark on anything. A reputation is something else entirely. It takes longer. It demands consistency. It requires that the person building it actually means what they say every single time they show up. Mat Armstrong has meant it every single time. But before any of that, there was a crashed Audi TT and 600 pounds. That's genuinely where this whole thing starts. In late 2018, Mat bought his girlfriend's wrecked Audi TT from the insurance write-off. No grand plan, no strategy. Just a broken car, a garage, and a camera sitting in the corner that happened to be recording while he figured it out. That accident of circumstance turned out to be the most important business decision he never consciously made. Because what that first rebuild video captured wasn't just a mechanic fixing a car. It captured something the entire automotive YouTube world had been missing without knowing it. Honesty. Real honesty. Not the performed humility of a creator who has already succeeded in pretending to struggle. Actual uncertainty. Actual mistakes. Actual satisfaction when something finally worked the way it was supposed to. People felt it straight away. And they kept coming back. Here is the question most people don't ask about Mat Armstrong. Why did he connect so deeply with so many people who aren't even particularly interested in cars? The answer is this: Mat didn't build a car channel. He built something simpler than that. He showed what it actually looks like when a normal person attempts something difficult and refuses to pretend it's easy. With Mat, you don't need to know anything about cars to feel that. Most of his audience doesn't. His father, Tony's involvement, deepened it further. Tony Armstrong wasn't a prop or a guest appearance. He was the living proof that everything Mat knew had been earned through years of watching real craftsmen work. When Tony appeared on camera, the authenticity doubled. You weren't watching a YouTuber. You were watching a son who had learned from his father, doing what his father had taught him. No corporate brand in the world can manufacture that. The channel grew, crashed, Audis became crashed, Maseratis became Lamborghinis. Each step up felt natural because nothing about the core ever changed. By the time Mat was rebuilding Porsches and Bentleys, he had something that most creators didn't, regardless of how many subscribers they accumulate. He had trust. Deep, durable, specific trust from an audience that believed he would never pretend to be something he wasn't. That trust was the brand, even if nobody was calling it that yet. As of March 2026, Mat Armstrong's main YouTube channel sits at over 6.3 million subscribers, with total views in the high hundreds of millions. His estimated net worth sits between 3.5 million and 5 million pounds, built across YouTube advertising revenue, long-term sponsorship partnerships, merchandise, profitable car flips, and a parallel property investment strategy built around the buy, rehab, rent, and refinance model. Not bad for a guy who started with a crashed Audi and 600 quid. This was not a YouTube channel that got lucky. This was a brand carefully constructed over nearly a decade of consistent, authentic output. But there was always a limit on how far a self-taught YouTube mechanic could realistically go. A limit defined by the industry's assumptions about who gets taken seriously and who doesn't. A limit defined by the gap between a creator with a camera and a manufacturer with a billion-dollar legacy. Then, the Bugatti arrived. And that blew that limit off entirely. Because what happened next wasn't just a car rebuild. It was a collision between two very different ideas about who owns the automotive world. And only one of them was ready for the fight that followed. The Bugatti saga as a brand war.
The passenger airbag has gone, but there is some signs that somebody got injured in there, so there may have to be some blurrage.
Most people saw the Bugatti rebuild as a mechanical challenge, a wrecked car, a stubborn mechanic, a manufacturer refusing to cooperate, a puzzle with a $6 million price tag attached to it. That reading of the story is accurate, but also completely incomplete. Because beneath the broken carbon fiber, the locked VIN, and the CEO's Instagram video, something much bigger was playing out. Something that had very little to do with cars and everything to do with power. Who has it? Who is allowed to exercise it? And what happens when someone who was never supposed to have any of it decides to act as they do? This was a brand war. From the very first video, Matt took it a step further. October 2025. Matt flies to Miami to look at a crashed Chiron Pour Sport. What happens next makes the entire automotive world pick a side. On one side of that story sat Bugatti, 115 years of heritage. On the other side sat Mat Armstrong, 32 years old, self-taught, no formal engineering qualifications. Just a YouTube channel built on the actions of a regular person could figure out almost anything if they were willing to be honest about every failure along the way. The randomness of that matchup is exactly what made it so good to watch. Bugatti's first move was simple. They blacklisted the VIN. Every authorized dealer on Earth is blocked from selling a single part for that specific car. Clean, total. Designed to end the conversation before it even started. It did the opposite. Every locked door became a video. Every refusal became a rallying point. Every obstacle that Bugatti placed between Matt and the parts he needed generated more views, more engagement, more media coverage, and more audience loyalty than any amount of positive press could have manufactured. Bugatti was trying to protect its brand. It was inadvertently building Matt's. Then came Mate Remac's Instagram video on January 2026. The CEO personally recorded a detailed response to a YouTube video about a mechanic's rebuild project, fact-checking parts prices, addressing three-dimensional printing claims, explaining the engineering complexity of the Chiron with the patience of a man who clearly felt the public conversation had gone off the rails. It was a reasonable response, professionally delivered, technically accurate in most of its assertions. And it was the single most valuable thing that could have happened to Mat Armstrong's public profile. Because the moment the CEO of Bugatti decided that Mat Armstrong's project warranted a personal response, he answered the most important unspoken question in the entire saga. Was this YouTube mechanic significant enough to take seriously? Rimac answered that question with a yes, loudly, on his own platform. The podcast interview on Cars and Money added an entirely new layer. Matt sat down with hosts Rob Moore and Carl Hartley and spoke about the entire experience with a composure that caught people off guard. He called it a Messi and Ronaldo situation, fine between the two of them in person, combustible the moment the internet gets involved. He said he believed someone within Bugatti had overruled Remac's apparent willingness to find a solution. The manufacturer's tone had shifted in a way that suggested internal politics rather than a unified position. That one detail changed everything. Suddenly, it wasn't Matt versus Bugatti anymore. Mat Armstrong versus the corporate protection of an exclusive brand's carefully managed mythology. And the new EU right to repair legislation, entering the conversation in early 2026, made the whole thing even more pointed. Bugatti's approach to the blacklisted VIN was suddenly not just a YouTube drama. It was a live case study in a legal and political debate that the entire automotive industry was being forced to engage with. Mat Armstrong had become the face of that debate without ever positioning himself as an activist. Bugatti had the parts, the factory, the engineers, and the billion-dollar reputation. Matt had only a garage and 6.3 million people watching. And somehow, it wasn't even close to over. But the brand war was only half the story. Because while the public argument with Bugatti was playing out in full view, something else was happening behind the scenes that nobody was paying close enough attention to. And that something would change the conversation entirely. Building the brand, while fixing the car.
Big ass rock that I thought that was gonna come through the windshield and hit me in the face, man. But thank God it didn't. Crack the windshield.
Every video Matt posted about the Bugatti was also an advertisement. Not for a product, not for a sponsor. For something much harder to manufacture and far more valuable than either one. For himself. That is the thing most people watching the Bugatti saga missed completely. They were watching a rebuild. Mat Armstrong was conducting the most public and effective brand launch of his career. And the remarkable part is that it was entirely accidental, or was it? Because when you look at the decisions Matt made throughout the entire Chiron saga, what he said publicly, what he chose not to say, how he framed the conflict with Bugatti, how he positioned himself against Rimaac's corporate response, what emerges is a portrait of someone with genuine media instincts, sharp ones. The kind that most people spend years in marketing school trying to develop, yet never quite master. Mat Armstrong developed them in a Leicester garage by filming himself making mistakes on camera for 8 years. Let's talk about what the brand actually looks like in 2026, because it is considerably more substantial than most casual viewers realize. The foundation is the YouTube channel. Over 6.3 million subscribers on the main channel as of March 2026. Total views sit in the high hundreds of millions. Then there's Mat Armstrong MK2 on his second channel. The stuff that doesn't make the main cut. The daily life, the behind the scenes, the moments between the big builds. A different side of the same person. 2 channels, 2 distinct audience relationships, one consistent identity underneath both of them. Then there is the merchandise operation running through matarmstrong.co.uk. Branded clothing, accessories, and automotive gear. The merchandise line is not a passive income stream with his name slapped on a hoodie. It is a deliberate extension of the brand identity. His sponsors understand this. Matt has been consistently selective about which brands he partners with, working only with companies whose products he actually uses in his builds. That selectivity is not just an ethical position, it is a brand protection strategy. The moment his audience perceives a sponsored post as inauthentic, the trust that took 8 years to build will start crashing. Matt has never let that happen. Then there's the part nobody talks about. Property. Matt has been quietly building a real estate portfolio for years using a buy, fix, rent, refinance strategy. Nobody watching the car videos thinks about this income stream, but it's there. His estimated net worth, as of 2026, sits between 3.5 million and 5 million pounds, depending on the source. For a self-taught mechanic from Leicester who started with a crashed Audi TT and 600 pounds, that number requires a moment of genuine consideration. Now, here is the question that this section is really answering. What did the Bugatti saga specifically do for that brand beyond generating views? 3 things. Each one is significant. First, it expanded the audience demographics. The Bugatti story pulled in viewers who had never watched an automotive YouTube video in their lives. People who were drawn not by the car but by the conflict. It made the story relevant to anyone who has ever felt locked out of something they legitimately owned. Second, it repositioned Matt within the automotive media landscape. Before Chiron, he was widely respected within the automotive YouTube community. After Rimaac's personal response, established automotive publications were covering him as a serious industry figure. That is a categorically different level of credibility. Third, and most importantly, it gave the brand a story, not just a collection of impressive rebuilds. A narrative that involves a conflict with a clear protagonist, a clear antagonist, and a central question that kept millions of people watching week after week to find out the answer. Every great brand has a founding story. Apple versus IBM, David versus the entire establishment, Mat Armstrong versus Bugatti. The specifics differ, but the structured viewers share the same structure. But while Matt was building his brand on the outside, something was happening on the inside. A decision forming that would change the conversation about what Mat Armstrong actually was and where this was all heading. And nobody outside his immediate circle had seen it coming yet. The moment everything shifted.
Once we know how it comes apart, I think it's going to be so much easier for us to put it back together because we know what we...
There is a difference between a content creator who fixes cars and a brand that challenges the automotive establishment. Most people in Mat Armstrong's position never make it to the second thing. They build a loyal audience, they do impressive work, they earn good money and genuine respect within their community, and they stay exactly where they started. A YouTube channel, a niche, a ceiling. In 2026, Mat Armstrong became the second thing. And the moment it happened wasn't the car firing up, it wasn't the transmission split, it wasn't even Rimac's Instagram video landing like a bomb on the automotive internet. It was a podcast, and a single sentence. When Mat sat down on Cars and Money with Rob Moore and Carl Hartley, he did something that nobody watching the Bugatti saga had fully anticipated. He was composed, measured, precise. He spoke about one of the most public and pressurized situations of his career, with the kind of controlled confidence that makes people stop and recalibrate who they think they are dealing with. He compared his dynamic with Rimac to a Messi and Ronaldo rivalry, cordial in person, combustible when the machinery around them gets involved. That line landed differently than anything else he had said publicly throughout the entire saga, because it wasn't defensive, it wasn't aggressive. It was the framing of a man who understood the game being played around him and had decided to play it on his own terms. He was not a YouTuber scrambling to defend himself against a CEO. He was a brand articulating its position clearly and without apology. The audience felt that shift immediately. Comments sections filled up within hours, not with the usual split between defenders and critics, with something more interesting. People started saying that Mat seemed different in this interview. He seemed more like someone building something deliberate than someone reacting to events beyond his control. They were right, he was. The podcast delivered one other revelation that significantly changed the public narrative. Mat said he believed that Rimac had privately indicated the parts situation could be resolved, that someone else within Bugatti's corporate structure had overruled that position. The tone from the manufacturer had shifted in a way that suggested internal politics rather than a unified safety stance. That detail changed everything. Suddenly, the conflict wasn't simply Mat Armstrong versus Bugatti. It was Mat Armstrong versus the corporate machinery of a brand that had calculated he represented a risk to its carefully managed mythology. The CEO of the company, by this reading, was almost as much a participant in the drama as a director. The automotive media noticed supercar blondie, car buzz, car scoops, luxury launches. Publications that cover the hypercar world for serious enthusiasts were now covering Mat Armstrong not as a curiosity or a sideshow, but as a primary news story. His name was appearing alongside Bugatti's in headlines unrelated to YouTube drama. That is not a small thing. That is the moment a personal brand crosses from its native ecosystem into the broader world, and the numbers confirmed it in the most unambiguous way possible. One of his Bugatti videos generated 6.8 million views in 4 days. His channel crossed 6.3 million subscribers during the height of the controversy. His monthly view counts were reaching figures that most established automotive media brands would consider exceptional performance for an entire year. The ceiling that YouTube mechanics were never supposed to break through.
Yeah.
The invisible line between content creator and industry figure that the establishment prefers to keep firmly in place. Mat Armstrong had not only walked straight through it, but he had also completely broken the scale for it. But here is the detail that the view counts, subscriber numbers, and mainstream coverage don't fully capture. Mat Armstrong saved the cars. That was the reason he gave on the podcast for what he does. When asked directly why he chooses wrecked cars over purchasing something immaculate from a showroom, he said it was about rescue, about giving machines that had hit rock bottom a second chance at the road. That answer changed everything. It took the brand war framing and grounded it in something genuine, something that the corporate machinery on the other side of the argument was structurally incapable of matching. Because Bugatti, for all its heritage and engineering brilliance and factory precision, could not say the same thing. Mat Armstrong could. And that distinction was about to become the most important element of everything that came next. What launching your own brand actually looks like. Nobody hands you a brand. You don't apply for one. You don't just buy one. You don't wake up one morning and decide you have one. A real brand gets built slowly, through decisions made under pressure, through consistency when inconsistency would have been easier, through the accumulation of moments where you chose to remain exactly who you said you were, even when the cost of doing so was high. Mat Armstrong has been making those decisions for 8 years. And what exists on the other side of those 8 years is something the automotive world is still working out how to categorize. Let's look at what the brand actually consists of right now. Not mythology, not the YouTube drama. The actual operational structure of what Mat Armstrong has built as of April 2026. The foundation is the content operation. Main channel. Over 6.3 million subscribers, hundreds of millions of total views. A second channel, Mat Armstrong MK2, runs alongside it as a daily life extension, giving the audience access to the moments between the big builds. 2 distinct content products, one unified identity underneath both of them. That structure is not accidental. It mirrors what established media brands do when they want to serve different audience needs without diluting the core product. The merchandise operation sits on top of that. The online store at matarmstrong.co.uk carries branded clothing, accessories, and automotive gear. Again, this is not a passive side hustle, it is a brand extension. Every piece of merchandise carries the same message as every video. The identity is consistent across every touchpoint. That consistency is the brand. The sponsorship portfolio sits alongside it. Long-term partnerships with automotive and lifestyle brands whose products Mat actually uses in his builds. The selectivity is deliberate and documented. He has publicly said he only works with brands he genuinely trusts. That selectivity protects the audience relationship, which is the most valuable asset the entire operation sits on. And then there is the property portfolio. The buy, rehab, rent, and refinance strategy runs quietly underneath everything else. The income stream that doesn't generate YouTube views but provides the financial stability that allows Mat to take creative risks that a creator dependent entirely on platform income could never afford. Running 2 Bugatti projects simultaneously while the controversy was at its peak. That is the kind of decision only a financially stable operation can make confidently. Now here is the question this section is really answering. What did the Bugatti saga add to all of this that wasn't already there? 3 things that money alone cannot buy. The first is a founding story. Every great brand needs a moment of origin that crystallizes what it stands for. Apple had the garage. Nike had Phil Knight selling shoes from a car boot. Mat Armstrong now has the Chiron. The car, a billion-dollar manufacturer said, could not be fixed outside its factory. The car that a self-taught mechanic from Leicester fixed anyway, in a private garage, with improvised solutions and 14 titanium bolts and a section of rigid brake hose standing in for a coolant pipe. That story is irreplaceable. It cannot be manufactured retroactively, nor can it be purchased at any price. The second thing the saga added was a political dimension. New EU right to repair legislation, taking effect on July 2026, will require manufacturers to provide access to spare parts and repair information for independent mechanics and consumers. Bugatti's approach to the blacklisted VIN, which Mat's situation made famous globally, is precisely the kind of practice these laws are designed to address. Mat Armstrong's name is now permanently attached to that debate. That is not a YouTube story anymore, that is an industry story. The third thing is the scale of recognition. A gearbox problem with a $350,000 repair quote on the Veyron, fixed with a fuse sourced from a basic automotive retailer. The kind of detail that spreads across the internet, not because it is dramatic, but because it is hilarious and perfectly on brand. The self-taught mechanic is solving a $250,000 problem with a part that costs less than a pizza. That story reinforces every single thing the brand stands for, simultaneously. Mat Armstrong had built something that no manufacturer could blacklist: a reputation, a community, and a position in a conversation that is bigger than just cars. And Bugatti's CEO, whether he intended to or not, had helped him build it. The only question left was where it all goes from here. Where the brand goes from here.
The only way they would know is if they put the VIN number into car vertical.
The Chiron is nearly there. Not fully roadworthy yet, and definitely not ready to be driven on a public road at 1500 horsepower with the confidence that every system will perform exactly as it should. There is still work remaining. There is always a building on this complex, but it started. It went into gear. It moved under its own power in a private workshop in Miami for a car that a Bugatti technician flew in from Paris to declare a total write-off. For a car whose VIN was blacklisted across every authorized dealership network worldwide. For a car whose CEO said publicly that only 2 places in the entire world were equipped to split it safely. That is where Chiron stands in April 2026. Closer every week, and surrounded by more attention than any independent rebuild project in the history of automotive YouTube. The Veyron is running alongside it. Mat's second Bugatti project, the repossessed Veyron acquired at a significantly reduced price, is generating its own storyline, its own set of obstacles.
That was well cool. That was easier to take off than the interior was to take out.
The same legal loophole that blocked parts access for the Chiron has also surfaced here. Bugatti's authorized service network requires the car to be physically present for on-site service. Independent parts sales are contractually restricted in ways that are again forcing Mat to navigate creatively. His response was characteristically direct. Bugatti's customer service, he said publicly, has not been as fast as its cars. His team would fabricate or source parts themselves. Again, the pattern is becoming a brand statement in its own right. Now here is the question that the entire arc of this story has been building toward. What does Mat Armstrong actually do next? Not with the Bugatti project specifically, with the brand, with the platform, with the position he now occupies in a conversation that extends well beyond YouTube. The options are significant. The most natural next step is a formal restoration business. Mat already has the workshop infrastructure, the technical capability, the supplier relationships built through years of sourcing parts for impossible builds, and most importantly, a global audience of millions who would follow every project it took on. A high-end salvage restoration company operating under the Mat Armstrong name would not be starting from zero. It would be starting from 6.3 million subscribers and one of the most recognized personal brands in the automotive world. The EU right to repair legislation taking effect in July 2026 adds a tailwind to that possibility that nobody could have predicted when the Chiron project started. Manufacturers will be legally required to provide greater access to spare parts and repair information for independent mechanics and consumers.
Yes.
But we're not going to show you yet. You're going to have to wait and see.
Okay.
Yeah, can't see it yet.
The exact regulatory framework that Bugatti's approach to Mat's project violated in spirit, if not yet in law, is about to be codified across the entire European market. Mat Armstrong accidentally became the face of that movement. A proper restoration business built around fixing the exact cars manufacturers want written off, right as the law changes to make that easier. If that isn't perfect timing, then nothing is. Then there is the training and education angle. Mat has spoken about inspiring people to get into mechanical work themselves. His comment sections are full of people who say his videos push them toward engineering careers or trade apprenticeships. A structured training platform, whether digital courses or physical workshops, would be a direct extension of the brand's core promise. That a regular person with determination and honesty can figure out almost anything. And underneath it all, the content operation continues to grow. New projects, new controversies, new moments that nobody predicts in advance. That is the nature of what Mat Armstrong does. He walks into situations that appear impossible and finds a way through them. The audience doesn't know in advance what the next impossible situation will be. Neither does Mat. That uncertainty is the entire product. Bugatti tried to shut the door. They locked a VIN. They sent a CEO onto social media to explain why the repair could not be done outside a factory. And they handed Mat Armstrong the most valuable thing a brand can have: a story, a conflict, a villain, however reasonable their technical arguments, and a protagonist who just kept working regardless. The outcome of the brand war isn't complicated when you look at where both parties stand right now. Bugatti is still Bugatti. Extraordinary machines, impeccable engineering, 115 years of heritage that no YouTube channel can touch, and Mat Armstrong just became impossible to ignore. That is not a loss for anyone, but it is very clearly a win for one side more than the other. Mat Armstrong didn't go looking for a fight. He walked into his garage with a wrecked car and a camera, same as he always does. The only difference this time was that the whole world was watching, and he just kept working. That's the brand. That's the whole story. A guy from Leicester who refused to be told what he couldn't do and built something nobody saw coming.